on the computer, going through my instructions by IT. We are here today with Chef Meg Gallus from Boca Restaurant. She's here with us today. This is our third in the series of our Foodie Friday Zoom interviews. And obviously we're all here Zooming because of the fact that we are in the middle of a crazy pandemic, and that has really hit our industry probably harder than any industry. If you look at the hotels and the restaurants and the industry like that, probably right along with the airlines. But we even have more outlets than them. So we've asked our Hall of Fame inducted chefs to come in and to actually give us a few minutes of their time to talk to us, to tell us how they're doing, maybe to tell us some different things that they're doing in their restaurants, and how are they surviving this, and maybe for people that are coming into the industry, what can we do to keep them going, and that's the hard part. So Chef Meg is our Pastry Chef of the Year inductee for the Chicago Culinary Museum and Chefs Hall of Fame, and unfortunately all four of our amazing women that were inducted in 2019, we have not been able to honor them yet because of the COVID. We've had to cancel our ceremony probably 3 times so far, and we are rebooked right now, but we're not jinxing ourselves by even sending anything out, and hoping for the best for 2021, which I think everybody is hoping for 2021, just to kind of let 2020 go for a lot of us. So I'd like to introduce Chef Meg, and I would first let her introduce herself, and I'd love her to tell us just a little bit about how she came up. And we have so many pastry chefs that are watching, and I come from a school where so many people come in that want to do pastries, and really look to the chefs that have made it like Chef Meg has all the way, and they just really want to know how she did it and where she's at now. So Chef Meg, welcome, and I'm going to let you talk.
Well, thank you. Thanks for, first of all, the honor of being inducted into the Hall of Fame. Even though we haven't had an official ceremony, it's a huge honor for me to be even included with this group. So thank you, and thanks for taking the time today to chat, everyone. So a little bit of history. I grew up in Illinois, kind of out in the cornfields west of the city, and always thought that I was going to be an actress on the stage. That was my first plan. My second plan was to be the first female president, and I'm really angry that job is still available, but I've let that one go. And so I came up, wanted to be an actress, went to theater school, went to college for theater, and then sort of found myself in Chicago, kind of acting and doing a lot of baking at home. And I actually had kind of a tragic thing happen. My mother died when I was 24. After a long illness, and it caused me to reassess a lot. And I kind of sat myself down and I said, you know what, I'm not enjoying my everyday life. I want to enjoy my everyday life. So and this is like such a pastry chef thing to do, I made myself a couple lists. I made a list of things I was good at and things I love doing. And then I looked for the crossover, and it crystallized in a second. It just became very, very obvious that this had sort of always been there, kind of in the periphery. You know, I loved working with hands. I love making people happy. I love baking. I love chocolate. I love eating desserts. All of these things kind of came together. As a kid, I would run restaurants for my parents and make them order my food. And so I went to the French pastry school, and I stepped inside the kitchen, and it was probably the smell of chocolate, but I was hooked instantly. I knew that was where I belonged. So I went to the French pastry school, graduated from there, and then said, you know, I want to go work where the best pastry is in the city. And at the time, it was True, the restaurant True, which is sadly now closed. But at the time, it was, you know, a fine dining restaurant that had a really extensive dessert program. You know, there was plated desserts, there were minières, there were chocolates, there was bread, there was a little bit of everything. It was really highly regarded. And so I went and I asked to work there for free, because at the time that I was coming out of school, jobs weren't, you know, super available. And so you kind of had to work for free for a little bit to get your foot in the door. So I worked for free for, I think, about 3 weeks before they actually hired me. I was pretty lucky. And And I stayed there for 5 years, which is a lifetime and a half in the restaurant world.
Oh, yeah.
And I really credit that job with so many of the things that have gotten me sort of to where I am today, the work ethic and the expectations that I have for myself and for others, and the quality of work, the hospitality aspect, and always remembering that everything we do is for the guest. All of that really was drilled in, and I took it in when I was working at True. After True, finally 5 years, that's enough. I moved on, and I really wanted to kind of explore something different than the fine dining world. And so I took a job as the pastry chef of the Sofitel Chicago, which was sort of like hotel boot camp. I stayed there a year. I learned a lot about mass production and organization and delegation, which are all very useful skills to have. I think that's really where I learned kind of the other side of it, not just how to make things, but how to really run a kitchen, and how to, build a team and empower other people. And that was really where those foundational skills were set. After a year there, I moved to the Park Hyatt Chicago. I was the pastry chef there. The restaurant was Nomi, and I stayed there again almost 4 years. 4 years before coming on board at the Boca Restaurant Group. So with Boca, currently I'm the executive pastry chef of Boca, the restaurant. It gets confused a lot with the restaurant group and the restaurant having the same name, Boca the restaurant. But I actually came into the group as the opening pastry chef of Momotaro, sort of under the radar because they didn't really have a full-time pastry chef, so it was kind of like a consulting deal. But then a few months later, I came on as the pastry chef of Boca. I was still overseeing Momotaro, and then I opened and was the pastry chef of Swift & Sons. Held those all concurrently for about 2 years, and then left Swift & Sons to open Somerset, and was the pastry chef of both Somerset and Boca until Somerset closed in March. So now I'm at Boca full-time and loving it. But that's kind of how I got to where I am.
Wow. Yes, a lot of great places that you definitely have been through. I know them all very well. True, especially. I've been acquainted with the owners and many people. So when you were at True, who was still there working with you? Were they?
Gail and Rick were sort of in and out. They weren't there full-time anymore, but the program was still very much theirs. The menus were still very much theirs. So they had chef de cuisine, sous chefs who were running it at the time.
Okay. Yeah, so Gail is also one of our inductees from back. She was our first woman inductee back when, and I just actually saw her at the ACF last year, at our last time we had a conference. Rick, who ventured out to New Orleans with a good friend of mine, and Chef Fols, and I was wondering because they had some great desserts there, and they do the chocolate treasure chest, and I remember parts of that from True and other places. So, it's, to me, it's one of the best. A good menu has to finish well. So pastry chefs, to me, are so well sought after, and it's something that everyone aspires to, especially with all the shows on TV that they've seen, and Cake Boss and all of these pastry shows. We have a lot of young people coming into the industry that really want to see the pastry chefs and want to see how to get there. So tell me, you went to French pastry school, and of course Jackie and we are very good friends of mine, and also inductees, and Sebastian. And so for people, we have a lot of students in school right now, and then we have also just a lot of young people that are in the ACF that have not gone to school yet. So what do you have something to tell them about going through school and how to apply that into an industry to get where you would be now? Because pastry jobs are hard to find, and that's what I usually have to tell my students. That's why we teach them cooking and pastries. So what would you say to something like that? You got to go to the French pastry school, but what about?
I did. I get asked a lot, like, do you have to go to school? You don't have to go to school. Of course you don't have to go to school. This is one of those industries where there are multiple paths to sort of the same point. That being said, my personal experience was that school provided me a really strong foundation to be able to learn quickly, to succeed quickly, to move up the ladder if that's something that people want, and to be really versatile. It also provided me a huge array of contacts and people I know, and foots in the door, feet in the door of places. I would not be where I am now without the foundation that I got in school. 100%. I do think it's really important as a pastry cook. A lot of people go to pastry school thinking, I want to do wedding cakes, I only want to do chocolate, I only want to do bread. The more you know, the more employable you are, and your taste may change. When I went to school, I wanted to do cakes. That's what I thought I wanted to do. And obviously I've almost never done cakes full time. I did an internship where I did cakes full time, and that was it. I found that I loved other things. I found that I really loved chocolate. As I'm progressing in my career, I'm finding other things. Like right now, I'm super into lamination and vinoiserie. Like it kind of rolls. And like the more, again, just the stronger skills that you have across the board, even if you're not, the best bread baker and the best ice cream maker and the best chocolatier, if you have those basic skills, you're going to find a lot more doors opening, and set yourself up to have new experiences and find new passions that you might not have expected. I did not think I would like bread at all when I went to pastry school. I did not think it was for me. I was like, it's great, it's fun to eat, but I don't have any interest in making it. I love making bread. I love eating fresh bread. I love, the art and the craft of it. And there's so much more to learn always. So I think for me, again, school was really important in that foundation. And, when I see, this is a little bit of a tangent, forgive me, but I see a lot of people coming to me to interview, let's say not in the last 6 months, but before that, who have sort of skipped a lot of steps, and they came out of school and they went into a small restaurant and they became the pastry chef of that small restaurant within a year and a half because they only had one person on the pastry team, and they missed out on sort of really building on all of those foundation skills. And they come to me and they say, I was a sous chef or I was the pastry chef, but I want to work for you now because I missed all of that stuff. And so it's just really important to continue building all of those skills across the board, so you don't kind of end up 5 years down the road and feel really uncomfortable in any circumstances. Again, pre-COVID, I think one of the great things about this city, the industry in this city, is that there are so many restaurants that value having pastry programs and pastry chefs in charge of them. But one of the sort of downfalls is that we end up having a lot of people who, accelerated their careers very quickly, and didn't take the time to really, really develop the foundational skills. And I think that's just super important.
Yeah, that's a great point. I teach that same point about when they come out of school. A lot of them, the first question I get from the young ones that come in is, how long is it going to take you to be a chef? And I said, I can't answer that question. I said, it's really up to you. You have to, there's no shortcut. You have to learn all your foundations. You don't have enough. I always call it a tool chest. I say, you just don't have enough in your tool chest. You have to make a menu right now. It would be what you've eaten as a kid. It's not going to be anything because you've never done anything, So I tell them about putting things in here. And that's a great point that I'm hoping when they watch this, that they understand that you got to work it up and you got to get all those foundations. Because to be a pastry chef over other pastry cooks, you got to know all the things that you're going to have them doing. So,
you're never going to know everything by any means. There's always more to learn. I learn every day. But the other thing, and I've been on the flip side of it, where I've had cooks that I've had for, who have been with me for a year and a half, and then they get offered a pastry sous chef position at this other restaurant. They're like, I'm going to go do that. I'm like, when you become a pastry sous chef or a pastry chef, it's not just about creating the menu. It's not just about making up the desserts and getting to do whatever you want in terms of a menu. You become a mentor for your team. You become a leader for your team, a teacher for your team. And that is all a very heavy responsibility. And no one's ever really ready for it. But there's a way to be more ready for it than not. And it's something that I think a lot of people sort of forget. They just see sort of the fun, glamorous parts of getting to create the menu and not not see the other part where you become responsible for your team's growth and development. You become responsible for a financial portion of the restaurant. You become responsible for, you know, the overall guest experience. There's so much more that goes into being a chef. And that's something that I think is really important for people to understand. They need to learn those things just as much as how to make X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, those are just unbelievably great points. That's exactly right, about, you know, what you have to go through, and there is the management aspect is really the one, that they don't think. I mean, it's more than just getting to make cakes and desserts. There's a management aspect of running parts of those kitchens, and I know running big hotels, with the pastry departments, it's such an intricate part. What do you say about an industry? Because say most restaurants or say they're not going to have a pastry department, because there's so many companies selling cakes and breads and things, and maybe they don't have the room. So you have so many small restaurants, but still, to work their way in, there's always a chance to do a couple of items of your own, and that's kind of what I preach to them. What about the industry as it is now? Do you see areas for the people to get into pastries as much?
I do. You know, it's really hard right now, obviously, because we don't know what's going to happen next week, let alone 6 months from now. And one of the things that we've sort of been thinking about a lot, in our restaurant is, you know, when we shut down for the initial quarantine in March, it was 2 weeks. And we're like, oh, you know, maybe there'll be 3 or 4, but then this will be over and we'll all go back to normal. And I think, you know, more and more we're all realizing that there is no more going back to normal. There's no, and not to say the pandemic is going to last forever, but eventually when we get back to, you know, full opening, whatever it is, the industry will have changed. The guests will have changed. What people want, what people expect, what people are willing to do. I mean, all of that will have changed. So now we're trying to figure out what it's going to look like in 6 months or a year or 2 years. There will always be room for pastry. There just is. You know, people love desserts and they make us feel good. You don't get dessert because it's good for you. You get dessert because it makes you feel good. And especially in times of stress, you know, people look for comfort. You know, what they look for might change a little bit. You know, I remember when I was still working at True, and it was 2008 and the economy crashed, and, you know, fine dining did this and cupcake shops did this because people wanted small, you know, affordable indulgences to make them feel better. That will happen again. Everything goes in cycles. So what will it be, you know, in 2 years that sort of has everyone's attention? I don't know, I'm trying to figure it out. But there will always be room for pastry. You know, that being said, I think when people are looking for jobs, it's tough right now because, right, you take any job you can get because the jobs are few and far between. But the advice that I generally give people is it is less about what you are making and more about who you are working with and for at the beginning of your career. Because those, again, I keep harping on it, but those foundational skills, both technique-wise and work ethic and just developing good habits in the kitchen, all of that comes from the team that you're with, not what you're making. So it is less important that you are working at a 3-star Michelin restaurant, you know, in terms of the food than it is the people. Find a good team, find a good mentor, and the rest of it will fall into place, is my advice.
Yeah, that's great advice, especially for ones in the industry. And you know, obviously, tell us a little bit about how you're surviving through the pandemic. And I know it's definitely stressful, but how are you guys staying with your head above the water? What kind of creativity have you had to come up with for this?
Well, gosh, you know, it's sort of constant creativity, and there's an element of that that's actually really fun and challenging. And I think one of the reasons that we at Boca have really succeeded, and when I say succeeded, I mean that we're doing really well within the circumstances. I don't mean that we're doing really well compared to normal. That's a whole different story. But the reason that we're doing as well as we possibly could be within the circumstances is because we really embraced it. I think from day one, we said, if this is what we're going to do, let's do it the best we can. Let's find the most creative ways to do it. Let's find the most fun ways. Let's enjoy what we're doing. Let's make food that we love. And if we love it, other people will love it. You know, and we really tried to pay attention to what our guests were asking for and what our guests were looking for. And then we dove in. You know, I think a lot of restaurants, perhaps we're a little bit more resistant to, you know, to pivoting. I hate the word pivot. It's my least favorite word of 2020. But a lot of people were more resistant. They're just, let's just, you know, we'll just hunker down and wait for everything to go back to normal. And that just doesn't work. So I think, you know, one thing that we've really done, obviously we've come back. So we have indoor dining. We also have outdoor dining. We added a few more tables outside, out in our front instead of just our back. You know, we're taking it really seriously in terms of our in restaurant dining. But we've also added on to-go dinners for two. We've added on brunch on the weekends. We never did brunch before, and now we're doing brunch every Saturday. And we're doing, you know, pastries to go, and I love doing that stuff. And we're doing, you know, breakfast sandwiches, and again, just making food that we love. We're doing, so we have a restaurant within the restaurant called Gigi's Chicken Shop, which was supposed to open in Revival Food Hall in March, and then obviously didn't. So we just sort of like absorbed it as a ghost kitchen. So we're doing Gigi's out of here, and you know, that brings on a whole different, you know, menu. We're doing, you know, fried chicken on the Boca Hotline, which we never thought we would ever do, and I'm doing cookies faster than I can count. You know, we're just trying to find all of the little ways that we can reach guests and give people what they want. And you know, it's not, I think we're trying to, I keep saying death by a thousand cuts. It's not really death by a thousand cuts, but we are trying to, you know, find each of these little ways to make a little bit of a difference rather than one grand solution, because one grand solution doesn't exist. But we sit and talk constantly about, you know, well, what if we did this? What about Thanksgiving? What about Valentine's Day? Because I mean, that's not really that far away to think about. You know, what are people going to be doing around the holidays? How are they going to be celebrating differently? What can we do to give them an experience, you know, in their homes, or, you know, like all of these things. We're just sort of constantly batting around ideas and trying to figure out really how to serve our guests and continue to serve our guests just in new ways.
Yeah, that's amazingly great. Yeah. Do you think any parts of what you're doing now are going to kind of stay around when things maybe get a little bit more normal? Are there parts of that you've found that you're like, wow, this is kind of a niche, maybe we'll keep this?
I think absolutely. I mean, and again, I think this is a much longer road, you know, perhaps than we'll want it to be in terms of getting back to any sort of semblance of normal. But I do think that there will be parts that we keep, dependent on, you know, space and staffing and all of those logistical things that tend to get in our ways. You know, we love doing brunch. Maybe we'll keep with that. You know, maybe Gigi stops being a ghost kitchen and becomes a physical kitchen at some point, which would be great. And I do think, you know, things to go. I think, you know, we were never a to-go restaurant before, but I think that will probably stick around for the foreseeable future. I don't really see it going away. We've figured out how to integrate it pretty seamlessly into our operations. You know, we've done a lot of things we didn't think we could do 6 months ago, which has been, I guess, kind of an upside in some ways. And I think we'll continue to look to our guests to see what our guests want and how our guests' tastes have changed. You know, maybe people want shorter tasting menus. Maybe people, you know, so many people now who are dining with us are celebrating. And we had a lot of celebrations before, but now it's like, it's through the roof. It's anniversaries, it's birthdays, it's, you know, jobs, whatever. You know, so maybe we'll look at different ways that we can help people celebrate in or out of the restaurant.
Yeah, that's a really good point about the celebrations, because I think before, like if you missed the birthday, you're like, no big, and it's no big. Now you're right. I think they're very, like, you're like, listen, I've been caged up, so for my birthday, I just really want to go out. Just you know what I'm saying? Something that you might have let go. I think now those special occasions, like you said earlier when we were talking, is that you need some comfort. You need just some semblance of normality. And I think that's what restaurants are still bringing to people. And I think that we need to figure out a way to do that. And I really think people have really come around on learning how to do to-go food, because we had no choice.
Really uphill battle at first.
Right, an uphill battle, exactly. And
learning curve.
Well, what container to put it in? What's going to keep hot? How can I be stable? I mean, how could we sell anything that's cold and make it survive till it gets? So those are all things that you had to research on the fly, and I think that part will stay. with all the door dashes and stuff like that, especially downtown, because no one really wants to cook downtown. I know so many friends down there; they never cook. I don't know how they survive, but I think there's a niche there for this, and so we can't wait till we can have the public back in to serve on China. But at the same time, I think it gives us another avenue of knowing how to do proper to-go food where we didn't know it before. And I mean, at the school, it's the same way. We have 2 restaurants, and that's the only way that we are serving food is to
Yeah.
go. And so the kids are learning fine dining, plated food, and now how do we pack it up to give it to somebody so that's a semblance of the experience. So
I mean, it's a completely different beast.
yes,
That the first few weeks that we were reopened, it was, there was no dining yet. It was only to go. And it was, I mean, we opened and like 3 days later we were getting food out the door, and it was like, we learned a lot of lessons the hard way on the fly. It was, it was
crazy.
a little bit of a boot camp, but we got through it.
That's very cool. Well, so tell us what is the restaurant hours now, and so that people that might want to come down, and what, like, are you taking some people inside, and what's the situation now at Boca?
Yeah, so we're open 25% inside. So we max out, say on like a Saturday night, we can do about 120 guests total, inside, outside, all turns. We're open, honestly, I'm not sure. I think it's 5 to 9, Sunday through Thursday, and 5 to 10 on Friday and Saturday. We have inside, we have outside, mostly reservation, but we also are doing to go. We have dinners for 2 available every week, Sunday through Thursday. And then we have brunch on Saturdays, which you can pre-order on Talk or just stop by and pick stuff up in the morning. And then we also have Gigi's Chicken Shop available from 11 a.m. to about 8 p.m. every day.
Wow.
So many ways. And we're doing custom cakes. So if you want a custom cake, we're doing that.
That's actually, that again is another something business.
Zoom classes, and I mean, all sorts of things.
Yeah, well, that's great. So I'm sure there's a bunch of people that wanted to know, so they can come down. And we were talking to Sarah last week, and she was telling us the same thing. It's kind of that same thing about they're open so far, and we're hoping obviously for the best for that. I have one more question just before we open it up for anyone else's questions. I have a lot of people that want to, when they come out, and their goals are to open their own pastry shop, or a little bakery. Now, you obviously went a different way. You went the route through the restaurants and did it that way. Was that something that you maybe wanted to do one day? And what do you have to say for the people that really would like to have that?
So when I graduated from school, which is now 15 years ago, I never envisioned that would be something I wanted. And I don't know why. That was just not sort of on my radar. I wanted to work in restaurants and hotels. I liked the energy of it. I liked the service aspects of it. I liked plated desserts. I liked whatever it is. That is definitely something that has been on my mind for the last few years, because now I do find sort of my interest narrowing in a bit, and finding that I really would love to have, something that's purely my direction. It's one of those kind of double-edged swords. As a pastry chef, you're generally working to someone else's vision, and you might have a lot of input. I have a lot of input, but I want to be the head guy or the head gal at some point, What I would say to people coming out, because I see that a lot too, people are like, oh, I went to pastry school because I want to open my own bakery. Oh my God, go work in like 3 bakeries before you do that. Like, go work for other people, learn what to do, learn what not to do. First of all, solidify your technical skills. Because if you open a bakery with sort of like, oh, I've made anglaise 3 times, go and solidify your actual technical skills, and then learn how to run a business. And because so many bakeries fail because people just think about making the cakes and not about how to, do payroll, or what is your food cost? What is your labor cost? Like, all of that stuff is inherently more important to keeping a business open than what flavor of cake to make at the end of the day. Bakeries are sort of notorious for being low money makers. You have to really do everything right in order to succeed. So you really have to embrace the business side of it. and just get a lot of varied experience, work for at least a few other people. Again, you'll learn things that you want to do and things you don't want to do, and that's fine. They're both learning. But it's just so important to not just sort of run out and open it because you've gone to school.
That's great. I'm definitely playing this for my class, since I also teach all the cost and the business, and some of these are my students that have chimed in there, and I tell them about, this is the part. Many people have gone out of business that are great chefs still to this day, but they all say it's because of, they didn't know that part. They didn't think it was important.
It's not the camera side. I mean, there's never going to be a Food Network challenge about who can balance their, spreadsheets the fastest. But
God, if there is, I want to get in that one. Yeah, I mean, I did the same thing. I wanted to open my own restaurant. So 25 years after I had done all the country clubs and hotels and all, I opened my own bakery, deli, New Orleans, because I'm from there. Did the beignets, the whole thing. And you know what? I loved working for people with their money rather than my own, because it is hard, especially being in country clubs and then going to your own. Wow. I like spending other people's money. It's hard to spend your own money, especially you. Very, very true. But I did it. It was something I always wanted to do.
You become hyper aware of like how much a sheet of parchment costs.
Absolutely.
How much does a pastry bag cost? Like how much does a bag of flour cost? Can you really afford to use the French chocolate, or are you going to use the other stuff?
Yeah. Calabo. Very good. Yeah, it's good. So I just want to thank you so much. This is a great information for all the people chiming in. So we've got chefs and we've got students, and this is going to be put on our website for everyone to tune in on their own time. And I already got so many that were asking me what happened to the last week's video, and I've had to write that 1,000,000 times to people, telling them it's coming and I have to redo it. But this one is definitely going to be good, and it'll be out there. And I've already got some chats coming in, so I know some people want to ask some questions or just to thank you in person. So I'm going to pop those up, and then I'm going to unmute people. I know Ina said, let's see if she's still on here. I just got to let her tell you herself. All right. Ina, you can unmute your there you are.
Here I am. I'm not in a place where I can turn on the video, but I just loved everything that Meg said today, because it was based on not only experience, but thoughtfulness and care, and obviously respect for the industry that she's in. And I just said to her how proud I am to be in the same industry with someone like Meg.
That means so much coming from you. You're a, an icon in this industry.
Thank you. Thank you. And you will be too when you get to be my age.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks, Ina. And Ina has tuned into all of ours, and she always has great friends in the industry and great words for everybody. And they still talk about her all the time. So again, this was our chance to really honor very inspirational, very driven women in the industry that we really all felt so important here at the Chicago Culinary Museum and our Chefs Hall of Fame, to really honor the women that have really been out there and not in the limelight, not seeking the limelight, that have been there. And we had to dig them up. We had to dig you guys up and throw you into the limelight, because really you've been great and just amazing. So we will be able to honor you one day properly. We are waiting. Our board is really working hard on trying to secure something, but again, to rush it and to do it halfway is not what we want to do. We want to be able to do this properly and honor you guys properly. So that's why we can wait until we can do it properly. But you're already inducted and you're already part of our family, and we will get to honor you guys shortly, hopefully shortly. I'm just going to keep to that. So if anyone else has a question for Chef Meg, you can unmute your screen and you can ask a question if you'd like to. Sure, if not, you can always maybe email Meg if some of them have questions, because I know that's what we put out there for Ina and Sarah, and I'm sure you already told me that you already get people that are contacting you. And you said a really interesting thing about stages and about resumes is that we would love to see more women coming and stepping forward to do some stages and to get out into industry, because we do see them starting and we would love to see them to follow those tracks. And we had kind of talked about that earlier, that we really want to see them. And so once we get back going, you guys still do stages at the restaurant, probably, I'm sure, eventually.
We do. Right now it's a little bit, not as much of a free-for-all like you used to. If you want to stage, come in anytime, whatever. Now it's a little bit more if we have a job opening. So we're obviously trying to control how many people are in the building and in the kitchen. But we love to have serious people come in and yeah, I don't know if everyone on here is pastry or not, but I would love to get to the point where when a female shows up for a kitchen stage, it's not assumed that she's coming to pastry. I would love to see more female all across the kitchen.
Yeah, that's absolutely a good point. And I think we're seeing that also in school also, is that this is the reason why we think that's great for them to fully get the whole aspect of everything in school. Just so they can see. And I've had some great ones that wanted to cook turn to pastries, and I've had some great ones that were all into pastry turn into savory. And I think, it's great both ends. So we would love to see them and get more into the industry. So
I have a pastry cook right now who has transferred over to work en manger just because in the situation we're in right now, that's where the job is. And she wanted to stay in the restaurant and wanted to stay with us. And we're so grateful that she was able to, to make that transition and just be a team player and get some new skills at the same time.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because I always tell them that a lot of times your first job might be in savory, but you just keep your eye on where you want to go and you work hard in your position, and one day that spot will come available for you, because sometimes it's just not available where you want to work right now, but I think that it will come. And you're right about the cycles. I think we definitely had the pastry cycle was going up, and then we went down, and it's so funny you said the cupcake, because I know a lot of people that opened the cupcake shops, and my friend who in St. Louis who won Cupcake Wars, and he opened up like 3 or 4 of those big cupcake shops, and it was a thing. And now we have the bun cakes, nothing bun cake, and all the little bun cakes in those places. So it's
donuts.
Donuts are those will always be around, donuts. So thank God. That and fried chicken are my 2 favorite foods. So you're hitting on my heart. I'm coming down for that.
We have both.
I'm coming. Yeah, you talk about comfort food. That's what I always say. That's me. So, but just a great for you giving us your time today. And I think it's really inspirational. And I know you're crazy. It's Friday. You're getting ready to go right back behind those green trees that you got behind you and get into the kitchen. And we want to thank you very much for coming on and taking time. And again, it's going to be posted up on the website. You can always come up there and visit it. You can see Ina's, hers will be up there. So starting next week, I'll have Chef Sarah's up there too. And next week, we have Mary Kay from the Illinois Restaurant Association, and she was our industry leader, and she's going to talk about the industry and come on and tell us all what's going on in the Illinois Restaurant Association. And of course, she's the one that started Chicago Gourmet and all of those things down there. And so she has been just a great inspirational person to have. So she'll be the last one of our first series. And so we want to really, really tell you how thankful you are giving us your time. And we will be, me and you are in touch all the time. So you're very good at responding. You're my best. So yes, so thank you for that, and we'll be in touch. Just keep in touch, just letting you know. Yeah. I know, but I'll keep in touch with you, so you know when how things are coming along, and if you need anything, just let us know. And thank you again for coming.
Thanks, everyone. That was good to have you.
Thank you. You have a good day.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.
Bye.